So we've taken all of the trunk, the two doors, the interior. We've pretty much got everything stripped down to where we're ready to mark off the official cuts. Now, I prefer to do two cuts on the roof. One rough cut a few inches beyond the actual mark on the roof so that you just get this rear part off of the car. And then I take a real detailed cut at the exact distance. We're just going to show you the final cut. And if you come in here, I'll show you. There's two reference points. The first one, the most important one, is here's your edge of your window right here. The first rivet in the gutter, I'll put my finger, this marker is on the rivet. So about 3 inches from the edge of the window, and I marked it off here. If you followed the front window edge, and you were to go straight up this edge, and you were to go a few inches forward, you would see this rivet right here. So this rivet right here, we're going to put a tape measure on. And we're going to go rearward from that rivet 6.75 inches. Now I'm going to put, if you guys can see, the tape measure is going to hook the rivet. So the tape measure is resting on the front of the rivet. So you're not pushing, you're pulling, right? So if you pull, you mark off 6.75 inches. All right, that's the critical one. So 6.75 inches from the front of this rivet, I'm going to come in like that until it stops, to right here. So that's your critical dimension. Now to double check that you're in the right spot, use the window. So go from the rear edge of the window about 4 3/4 inches. So if you just set your tape measure up against the window, now remember, the window moves a little. It's not an exact measurement. The rivet is the exact measurement. This one is used just to make sure you're not an inch off in the back. So you measure from here. You can see here I'm about 4 3/4 inch from here. Just to double check, if I look at these two lines, the 6.75 inch line is about 1/8 inch forward from this point, but that's your safety check. This is your actual measurement. So just to summarize, from the front of the rivet in the trough, 6.75 inches. And then I take this ruler, you mark that off on both sides, and you set your straight edge right where it belongs, and you begin to make your mark across the top of the roof. Okay, we begin the actual cutting of the car, and you can see this is the rear strut mount right here. You'll recognize this one has a brace on it, but this is the rear strut top. This is the rear seat back, and this is the corner that we're going to be cutting. And the key to the rough cut is we're not trying to do the detail cut yet. We're just marking off in a rough way. Take a look here. You've got 2 holes here. Here's your level of your strut tower top, right? The rough cut and the final cut is only about 1 inch above this surface right here. The rough cut, we just want to get the roof off and get the window off and the rear quarter panel off. So we're going to go about 3 or 4 inches higher. We're going to go straight from this hole. We're going to go under the seatbelt mount, and we're going to follow this flange. This is the top of this little triangular brace here. We're going to follow that right underneath these welds all the way back to the corner where there's a hole. And you can see the hole is where the tip of my finger is a hole. That hole, we're going to stop, and we're going to go to the outside, which I'll show you. We're going to go in this top corner here. This is just the trunk opening. This is the trunk hinge. And we're going to go this way to the corner of the window, and we're going to slide along this cut here. And when you see me cut, you're basically going to see me go like this, straight in, across, and then we're going to meet up with that hole. And we'll probably have to check out where we're going on the inside a few times, and while we're cutting, you'll be filming. But we're going to go straight across here. We're going to meet up with that hole, and that separates the quarter panel from the crossbar in the rear. Then we're going to cut the top to our line. So this top line that we've marked off, we're going to cut that one, and then the entire rear assembly will come off. this is the rough cut from the outside. I just do a quick line here to show you. You're a couple of inches above the bottom of the black trim. If you were on the inside, like we just showed you, there's a few holes and guidelines there. But basically, you want to stay above some of the heavier metal there and join at this corner. Remember, the corner of the trunk up here is where you're going to angle in and make one clean break through all of the deep material. So I'm going to cut right here, and remember, plus or minus a half an inch, no big deal. We're going to zip along here. We're going to stay flat, horizontal, and go all the way to the back. And that'll separate the C-pillar from the quarter panel. And then we'll do our top cut and we'll haul this thing off. Show the glasses. This is the roof rough cut, and I was going to cut just right on the line to be exact, but I'm going to do it how you would do it, which is I drew my line exactly where I want to cut. I'm going to cut a full inch to the rear of that line, and then we'll trim it once this whole rear is removed. So here's the roof cut. I'm going to cut the final line right here all the way across. I'm going to cut about an inch to the right toward the rear of the car to make sure that I have all the material I need to remove this rear section. We've already rough cut the Subaru in order to get the rear window and the trunk and the doors off. So we've removed only this one section of the rear roof. Now we cut it a little bit high because we didn't really care about the details. We just wanted to get all that stuff out of the way. Now we're going to begin the detailed cuts. The one on the roof, as we showed in the earlier video, is exactly 4.75 from the rear glass and 6.75 from this little rivet here. So this one is easy to mark. You mark it left to right. The final cut is just taking the Sawzall and very carefully cutting along that line. In the rear, it's even easier. There are two little plastic nubbies here. I've painted them yellow and put an arrow on them. Those little plastic nubbies are just an indicator of about the height that we want to cut to stay above the main shock tower flange. So we're going to cut straight across. Our first step is just to take this outer skin off of the quarter panel. In order to do that, on this particular car, it's real easy. Look at all the rust. We're going to trim right through the outer skin only. I'm going to come down, I'm going to trim along, and I'll get rid of this sheet metal on the outside. If you have a non-rusty car, a car that has all of this quarter panel intact, you're going to use that 2 inches to bond the fiberglass onto the car. And if you do that, it's a little easier with a car that isn't rusty. But this is a great way to save a rusty WRX. two 10mm to remove the gas cap. You have to go above. There's a little double layer of steel under there, so you got to go above that. So for rough trimming, to get this off, I'm just going to trim up above here and straight across. Got it?
Yeah.
We're going to be taking this sheet metal, all of this little sheet metal. All we want is this right here, this big triple stamped tower that this attaches to. None of this metal that sticks up beyond the tower is going to be kept. That gets heated. This gets cut. These little tabs. There's a little tab right here. So once that's off, this gets heated and the skin comes off. The sound deadening wasn't part of the Subi. Anyway, this goop is how the outer skin is held. This panel bond. And be patient. Don't try to tear it off if it's not. When it wants to come off, it comes off. That's coming off. So now the only parts. Take a look here. I can heat this all the way around. See these two tabs here? Those tabs right there. That one and where's the other one? This one right here. See this tab right here? There's a little fold, a little tab right here, and a little tab right here. It looks like another one up here. So these 4 spots, there's a spot weld under here. And you want to leave the tabs. We just want to slice. Once we peel this back, we want to slice like that. You know, so we're going to take this, I'm going to take a pair of pliers and start to take it off. When it comes to this kind of stuff, just take the snips and snip them off. You don't need to. And wear a glove. So this one doesn't, if you ever do reach, like see how I'm reaching this and it just won't come off, right? Well, that's because of that tab. So I'm going to fold this way. Take a look underneath here. You can see the tab. Run over this way, Tim. So you can cut the tab. That's one tab right there. See that tab there? That's the one you want to. You want to just leave that in there. You don't want to be forcing that off. You just kind of snip that. See what I'm doing there? There's another tab there. And now this has been all heated up, so you can see where it kind of falls away from the part. What we want is this inner structure where this is bonded to the outer quarter panel. We're going to bond this to our quarter panel. And so, it makes it a very similar. Again, the inside one is pretty, this is pretty beefy. You can see, you can take all this off. But this is how we're going to keep the stock fuel cap. So this whole thing moves. We're going to line it up to our fiberglass piece. So this whole thing now, can move in and out. If you have to go in further than what you have here, all you do is you loosen these 4 bolts and you put a washer behind them, and that moves this whole thing in. So every now and then, if the fiberglass is really thick on the layup, you'll have to put a couple of washers behind those screws in order to move the housing in. And that's it. That's really, it seems sometimes like you go through a lot of work to save OEM pieces, but there really is no substitute. There's no substitute for having an original equipment gas tank, door. Little stuff like that is what makes the car feel so factory. You keep this door, you keep this, you keep all the emissions controls, you keep the drain. That's the difference between a car that's a kit car and a car that is a kit car that actually performs just like an OEM factory car. So that's it.